Walking is the best medicine for that poor circulation in the legs. You got to walk further. You got to walk faster to grow those collateral network of vessels to improve that circulation. One key to walking further and faster is, Kevin, flex your feet. That's going to be the topic today, right?
Yeah, that's a small part of the process, but an important one.
That's just the beginning. So today we're going to be looking at chapter 8, I think you said, of your book, the P.A.D. training manual. People can find the P.A.D. training manual on Amazon. Actually, Andrea, who's on today, called the Leg Saver Hotline, and she told me she already got your book. So she's excited to have you read chapter 8. And hopefully, Andrea, we can catch you up to chapter 8 a little bit today. But also for those who have not caught up, they can go to youtube.com/the weight of my heart and catch up there. And if you want to see some of the exercises he talks about in his book, you can go to his YouTube channel at Fit Old Dog. Okay, Kevin, we are ready for chapter 8. Flex your feet.
Well, moving on to chapter 8, I'm going to read it on my phone. You're actually moving on to the yellow area of my training map, which is intermediate. You've covered beginner, and now you're on to intermediate. And there's a number of things that are important. My coach said in Ironman training, and if you're gonna literally outwit peripheral artery disease, it's a professional disease. It turns up every day, 24/7. It never goes away. So you have to develop the mindset of an endurance athlete if you hope to outwit this damn thing. So that's quite important. And as my coach said, this is training camp, not complaining camp. And you will have to use pain as a monitor for your exercise and walking. If you don't induce any degree of discomfort in your lower legs, below your knee at least, such as claudication in your calves, then you won't let your body know you need collaterals. So that's part of the work. It's part of the work. So
can you say that again, Kevin? That's a really important point. There is something when it comes to peripheral artery disease, that old line that they would use, no pain, no gain. And you just spoke truth. It is the truth when it comes to PAD. We're not talking crippling pain. We're not talking, I am literally going to fall if I take another step pain. But there is a certain amount of pain, right, that you should experience in order to trigger your body to grow that network of collateral vessels, correct?
Yes, and there's two ways to do that training, and I call them intensity or endurance. I have a pain scale I use, which is 0 to 5. If you have a 0 to 10, who's going to know the difference between a 7 and an 8 pain? I mean, it's too fine a divider. To me, a level 0 is no pain. A 1 is slight discomfort. 2 is distinct discomfort. 3 is some frank pain in your calves, usually claudication pain. 4 is quite distinct, somewhat severe pain, but you can keep going. It doesn't stop you. And that's what I call an endurance level of training. And all this is described in a video on YouTube, endurance versus intensity walking. And so at a level 4, it's very painful, but you can keep going. You can get by. You don't have to stop. And that's pretty important for growing collaterals. And then level 5 is very different. You take it up a notch. And now about every few minutes or a few hundred yards, you have to stop and let blood flow back into usually your calves or your feet. And by the way, that is an extremely uncomfortable process and quite painful, but it's a very different kind of pain. And so you're just repeating that. And you'll see a couple of graphs in that movie and also on my website, Inspirational Self-Help Books, Keep Your Feet, where I show those graphs of the two kinds of pain applied to exercise and training. However, now you're moving on from beginner to intermediate, and all this is based on my lifetime of training, and especially the last 25 years of some really good coaches in Ironman training, Ironman triathlon. I learned a great deal from them on how to train at the right level without injuring yourself. And so this approach to PAD is based largely on that way of thinking. So you have to be sure you've mastered the beginner's material before tackling this section. And some parts are very tricky. The latest book I put on my YouTube channel describes in detail how to go from the exercises like the P.A.D. 100 to applying that thinking to the road, to actually applying it to walking. And so that might be a useful video to watch as you move from beginner to intermediate. So you covered all the stuff about, wide toe box, no tube socks. You've got to improve venous return by flexing your toes, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's addressed in the transition to the intermediate level. So chapter 8, the first chapter of intermediate, is flex your feet for pumping blood. This may sound kind of odd because most people think, you have the heart and it pumps and a bunch of pipes. And there's a tendency to think these pipes are inert. Well, they're not inert at all. The entire vascular system is a network of pumps. Every muscle helps pump blood in your veins back to your heart. Every artery contains elastic tissue, in fact, a couple of layers of elastic tissue that stores energy and passes it along like a pump. For instance, your right heart is fed while the heart is relaxing. So when the heart contracts in ventricular systole, it pumps blood up into your aortic arch, which is very elastic. And then the valves slam shut once the heart stops contracting, and that bicuspid valve slams shut, leaving the aortic arch expanded and pumped full of blood. And that energy is used to drive blood into your heart, because a heart can't be fed with blood when it's contracting, because it's pumping the blood out of the heart. So as the heart relaxes, the stored energy in the aorta drives blood into your heart. So your heart is the only organ in your body that's fed during diastole or the relaxation phase. So in order to understand what's going on in your body, it helps to learn a little bit of straightforward physiology of how blood flows. It's not that complicated. It's basically plumbing, but it is a complicated system. And the method I developed, I don't know if anybody else has done this, I have no idea, but is to turn my feet into pumps. So your feet contain about 10 muscles on the bottom of your foot. Photographs of that are shown on my website and also in the book. And so now you want to turn your feet into pumps. And so in order to do that, your feet have to be like your heart. You have to contract and relax in exactly the same way, except it's your feet. And so one part of that is learning how to flex your entire foot. So if you flex your toes by picking up a towel, all right, that's what you do to improve venous return in your calf muscles contracting and putting pressure on the veins in your lower leg. And when it comes to contracting the muscles in your feet, now you're contracting the entire foot. And that is very important part of this pumping mechanism. And that is equivalent to systole. Down that, then you can start turning your feet into pumps. And this is, it's made all the difference to me. It's made such a huge difference to how far I can walk. I can go miles now with no claudication. It used to be just a few hundred yards. I've had this since 2014. And now I'm trying to get back to Ironman training. The age of 83, that's not so easy. It comes with its own problems. But I did manage to apply this technique in 2013 and was third in my age group in the World Half Ironman Championships in Finland. So this method really works. Until I developed this approach, there was no way I could complete a half Ironman. I mean, the swim and the bike are no big deal, but the run is really hard with P.A.D. And so anyway, as an N of 1, I seem to have this working. So now you have to learn how to flex your feet for pumping blood. Go look at the diagrams on my website of the muscles on the bottom of your feet. We almost never use them. We usually put our feet in shoes and walk along and forget our feet. That is a huge mistake. And people with P.A.D. need every bit of energy in their body to help them fight, or what I call outwit, peripheral artery disease, or P.A.D. So the objective of chapter 8 is to learn how to flex your whole foot as you walk or run in order to engage the blood pumping action of the muscles in your feet and calves. And this has to be like your heart: contract, relax, contract, relax. So that's if you go to my YouTube channel, Fit Old Dog's YouTube channel, there's some videos on that, plus the latest one I put in there. It's not in the book. One is called Turn Your Feet into Remote Blood Pumping Stations, and there I describe how to do it. And then another one is Use Your Feet to Save Your Feet, and I have what I call the diaphragm pump analogy, where I compare your feet to a diaphragm pump. So it's time to engage those oft neglected muscles in your feet, and here they are. Did you know they were there hiding in your shoes? And there's a picture in the book. Let's see if I can show it. And here are those muscles in your feet. There are two sets, and they function in a slightly different way. It's worth looking at that. It's definitely worth learning a little anatomy. The spreading of our feet with yoga toes, that is in order to allow blood to flow between our metatarsals, the long bones in our feet, because there are small arteries between those bones. So you want to separate them, and you do that by spreading your foot, which is part of the relaxation phase. But this is about using the muscles in your feet as a contraction phase, like your heart going into systole. Okay, there are two sets of these muscles you can involve in the process of pumping blood and other fluids through your feet. Remember, interstitial fluid is also an important part of how your feet work, as are the lymphatic vessels, and all this system needs to be working optimally so you can keep your body moving. You need to work on this multiple times a day until it becomes easy and natural. And the frequency of these exercises is laid out in that spreadsheet. I laid it out as a 3-month training plan. And if you are really advanced, you can do it in 3 weeks. And if you're not advanced and you're just learning, it might take you 3 years, but who cares? You're now fighting back. Thank goodness. You'll be doing this as you walk all the time. So not only do you have to contract those muscles, you have to contract them while you're walking. And that is a tricky thing to learn. But as soon as you actually get it, you can use your hands to help. You'll be surprised how much better the blood flow is through your feet. And it's your feet that are at risk of P.A.D. That's where gangrene starts, in your toes, as far away from your heart as possible. So contracting those muscles is key. I now do it automatically as a conditioned reflex. It's like driving your car. You don't think about the steering, you just do it. You talk to a friend, you listen to the radio and you're driving. You need to take it to that level so it becomes a conditioned reflex. Sometimes your feet will get tired, especially at the beginning, and those muscles will start to ache. That just means you got to back off and let them recover. It's like any form of training. So that is about the contraction of the muscles in your feet by flexing not just your toes, but flexing your whole foot.
Yeah.
And you're doing this while you are walking or running. That is the trick. The next chapter is mastering the P.A.D. 100 exercise correctly. But until you know how to do this correctly, there's no point doing the P.A.D. 100. You have to do it right. So that's it. That's chapter 8. You are now moving into intermediate level P.A.D. endurance training.
Fantastic. So I do have the video you just put together on the P.A.D. 100. It's 2 minutes, 52 seconds. Should we play it right here?
Sure, unless anyone has any questions first.
Does anyone have any questions, or do you want to watch the video first? For those that are in our live studio audience, you can go ahead and always just unmute. No need to raise your hand. And if you are on YouTube, go ahead and put any questions or comments in our comment section. You can also request to join our live in studio audience at info@padhealth.org. Looks like we're going straight to the video. So I'm going to include the sound, and I'm going to play your video that you put together. It's actually really cool. So I think people are really in. Here it is. I'm going to optimize the video first, and then I will play it. Here you go.
Hi, it's Kevin Thomas Morgan here. Taking your P.A.D. training on the road is tricky and hard for me to explain. You've learned how to turn your feet into remote blood pumping stations. You had to go through the process of spreading your feet, spreading your toes with yoga toes, which spreads your feet. It spreads the long bones in your feet and helps blood flow. You can also do this in the pool. You then have to strengthen your feet by picking up a towel, which causes you to flex your toes. And in lifting up the towel, you strengthen your feet and the muscles in your feet. But more importantly, this process improves venous return due to contraction of muscles in your calves, compresses veins in your calves, and improves the return of blood flow back to your heart, clearing way for fresh blood in your feet. Then you have to master shoulder hip counter rotation, and the treadmill is a great place to learn this to eliminate heel striking. You strengthen your core on the treadmill with incline. You replaced your tight shoes and tube socks with big toe box and non-compressive socks or no socks. And then the tricky part begins. You have to learn how to talk gently to the ground, like a pianist working on the piano keys, gentle and soft. If you watch my feet, you'll see they roll in from the side gently. And this eliminates severe impact stress and strain on my feet. So you have to watch carefully how I do that. And it's all dependent on shoulder hip counter rotation. And along with all the other exercises in my training plan, the chances are you'll be able to walk a long distance in spite of P.A.D. once you've grown enough collaterals and learned how to move effectively with your whole body and to use your feet as remote blood pumping stations while you walk. And of course, you will find a lot more detail in my training plan, which is available as an audiobook, an ebook, and a paperback. And that, friends, is easier said than done. Over and out from Fit Old Dog. What was the bird tweeting in the background? It's not on the video.
No,
No, it's not.
it sure seems like it.
That's really funny.
That
I don't
was
know about
weird.
any bird tweeting in the background.
Yeah, I heard it a lot.
It might have
There
been
it
the
is.
buzzing of my.
I can hear it now.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm still.
it's my treadmill. I'm working hard, you
Oh.
guys.
Oh,
I told
that's what it
Andrea
was.
yesterday she should join us because I am always walking on my treadmill. We just got to get Carl to walk on his treadmill or out there
You need to
while
oil
we're
it
doing
or
this.
something, because it's an
It
irritating
just
noise.
hums. I know it hums. It
Notice
hums.
it was tweeting like a bird.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know why? Because I was concentrating while you were doing that. I was trying to shift how I was walking, so my feet were kind of sliding across it.
Oh,
Because as you were talking, I was trying to focus on moving my feet from the outside in versus heel striking. So as I was shifting and trying to play around with it, yes, it did. I just didn't realize you guys could hear, because a lot of times I always have my dogs barking in the background, and my blue mic typically doesn't pick up the ambient sound, but obviously
that's what the
I'm
tweeting
back
was.
up. You would be proud of me, though. I'm 5 weeks out of surgery, and I'm up to 3 miles an hour now, which
Wow.
is great.
That's great.
I know. So excited. I built up to it the last couple of days. So I did 2 sets of 90 minutes on the treadmill, and I started at 1.5, moved it to about 20 minutes in. And then as I got to the last, 15 minutes, I ended up pushing it up to 3 just to see if I could handle it. And I was able to do it. So we're moving along. I'm going to get up to 4 and 5, hopefully in the next month, little by
One,
little.
one thing that's become clearer and clearer to me in the last couple of weeks in particular, in terms of like the hip shoulder counter rotation, is that it seems to move the center of my walking engagement in my body up. So if I don't do that, it seems like I'm walking at my hips, like my femurs are moving back and forth in my pelvis. You know, the ball is rotating. But when I get my hip and shoulder counter rotation going, all of a sudden the walking is coming from my abdomen, like from my
Yeah.
diaphragm down to my femurs, and the whole thing is coming alive in a really different way. And my, you know, my foot is not elevated off the ground in the same way as when I'm not walking that way, so that the easy footfall is just becomes very natural and smooth. Does that make any sense?
That's how it works.
Okay.
You're using
Mic drop.
you're using the elastic recoil of your spine, which helps for running. It really helps a lot, like running marathons and stuff. Learning that process, which I got mainly from Jack Hagee and Danny Dreyer's work, and also from, you know, studying running. Your spine is like a spring, you know, it's like a mechanism in a watch. And so when you take your shoulders one way and your hips another, you're actually winding up your tension in your spine, because your shoulders are moving in the opposite direction to your hips. And so now you've got this tension in your spine. And of course it wants to spring back, and it springs over the other way, springs back. And so you take that energy, stored energy in your spine, incorporate that into your walking or running, and it makes the whole process a lot easier. If you watch really good athletes, you'll see they do it a lot. And another thing it does, it lengthens your stride quite a bit, and it prevents you from heel striking. If you have a clear, distinct shoulder hip counter rotation, that means the right shoulder goes forward when the right hip and leg goes back. You'll notice that athletes do this to an extreme degree, runners, and so do children. If you watch children run, they do that naturally. But the trouble is, we put their feet in shoes and then we tell them not to do that, and then they're all messed up. And of course, that's what the human condition is.
Yeah, it
Look at
feels.
Douglas. Douglas is over there. He's doing his foot exercises. It's always nice to see, you know, whether you're sitting or standing, there's always something that you can do with your feet. And Douglas is showing us in our live in studio audience how, while he's sitting there doing watching this, he's always moving his feet. He sometimes will pick up a towel with his feet, and other times he's just literally strategically moving them, you know, back and forth, forward and back on his hardwood floor. So nice job, Douglas. Hi, Mike. Just wanted to say hello. I bet Mike's getting ready to go out on his walk. And Carl, I interrupted you, so go ahead.
No, that's okay. I have something else I wanted to share with the group, but I could
Yes,
wait.
please.
If you want to keep talking about the feed and the counter rotation and stuff, but I wanted to come back to something later or now. Okay, this is in the same body, so it's all related. I wanted to put out kind of just a general heads up and maybe even like a warning, which is based on my experience with a dental bone infection. And I basically needed a root canal, but I didn't know that for a long time because, one, I have a high pain tolerance, which isn't good in that case. And two, it wasn't really bothering me that much. But by the time it got discovered, I had a lot of bone loss in my maxilla on the upper part of the jaw. And you know, I'd seen for years, I just kind of knew that people talked about, well, there's certain kinds of elective surgeries they won't do unless you go to your dentist and you get a clearance that everything, you know, you don't have infections or blah, blah, blah. Different than an
Yeah.
emergency surgery. But, and then I kind of looked it up a little bit more, and you know, and it was like, they're really clear that, like, you know, arterial sclerosis, cardiovascular disease can be made worse by dental infections. And I'm not, I
Yep.
mean, I'm talking specifically about caries, cavities, though they can proceed into that. But you know, the stuff that's going on periodontal and jaw stuff. So I actually, it's hard to, you know, it's really hard to pinpoint the day that I started with this problem. But based on the amount of bone loss that I had, it's been going on for a long time, and there's a really high likelihood that chronologically, it's pretty tied in with the amount of time that my P.A.D. was developing. So I did get it taken care of, and then 2.5 years later, they figured out that they actually didn't succeed, and so I just had another redo root canal. And you know, you don't know till later on, because they have to look at it sometime later and see if everything is changing. Just like kind of a general friendly warning to everybody. I mean, it's kind of easy enough to ignore these things if they're not driving you crazy. But it's, you know, maybe with the fact that it does have a cardiovascular red flag, I would just say to people, my friends, you know, my peers, don't let this stuff slide. If you have any opportunity at all to afford to get it checked and get it taken care of, it's like we can't walk off a dental infection.
Yeah, Carl, the what you do want to avoid, especially people with stents, is you want to avoid bacteremia if you possibly can. Some people with stents will take an antibiotic before they get a dental cleaning, because when you get your teeth cleaned, it triggers a, you know, a bacteremia. Bacteria go from your mouth because of the bleeding if your teeth are very unhealthy. And so maintaining healthy teeth is quite important. The condition you're talking about is basically a pulpitis or a dental abscess, which can actually kill you if you're not careful. It can produce a life-threatening bacteremia, septicemia. And so good dental care is quite important. One of my sons is a dentist, and one day about 20 years ago, he said, "Dad, you seem to look after your car better than you do your teeth. And your teeth are much more expensive than your car," which turned out to be true. And so after that, you know, I regularly floss. I use a dental pick, you know, water pick, and I got one for like, I don't know, it's $25 from Amazon. And it's very, very convenient. It's portable. You don't want to get one where you got all these bits and pieces that fall all over the place. This thing is self-contained. It's an extremely good dental water pick, and so I use it. I use it every night. Combine that with flossing to get, you know, any tartar stuck. And now when I go to the dentist, I mean, they don't have to do a lot. I have all implants up top. It's all implants and crowns. If that fails, I'll be in trouble financially. And down the bottom, I haven't got that many teeth left because I had rickets as a kid. My teeth disintegrated. But I'll tell you, the water pick, floss, regular cleaning your teeth reduces the risk of bacteremia and tooth decay that can threaten a stent. There's no doubt about it. And infection can also exacerbate arteriosclerosis because you don't want infected blood vessel walls. So your
After
admonition is appropriate.
this is such an important conversation, and I appreciate Carl you bringing this up and Kevin going into detail about it, because I know when my dad had his hip surgery, and I was reminded of it when our registered vascular technician who helps in our network, Denise, she had hip surgery. And then when both of them went to the dentist afterwards separately, and they had a procedure, they had to go on antibiotics before going in and during, because you just don't want to take that chance, The other thing which I thought was interesting is my dad had they took an iodine swab to the nose before he had dental surgery. I don't know if that's going to the extreme, but I guess better safe than sorry.
Well,
Well,
the thing is,
That's a
the
really good
nose,
question.
and the mouth are connected, through the lacrimal ducts, and they're very closely associated. So, yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense.
and the floor of the sinus above the maxilla is very, very thin.
Yeah.
And so I suppose iodine might be able to perfuse down in that direction as well, and yeah, just head it off at the pass.
Yeah. Infection in your nose is certainly going to spread to your mouth. So, yeah, I was a world nose expert at one time. We used to travel all over the world talking about rat noses, but that's another story. But yeah, I think I'd publish more on the toxicology of rat nose than anybody
We
on the
love when you
planet.
digress. We love when you digress. Get that look I'm getting.
So in this,
It's
I
not
love
a-
your
and-
stories. Every story, no matter what pathway you choose, Kevin, it always ends up being absolutely fascinating.
Well, the nose turned out to be very interesting. I mean,
Here
1981,
we
I
go.
got. Okay, I'll talk about it later, I guess.
No, I was excited to hear.
Okay, well, in 1981, I joined the Chemical Industry Institute of Toxicology and Research, Triangle Park, which is an incredible organization. Of course, it found things that were toxic with chemicals, and then the chemical industry, about 25, 30 years later, did manage to close it down, which was actually terrible. But I would work there for 17 years, and by chance, just by chance, I ended up studying nasal toxicology in the chemistry of chemicals that affect the nose. And that led to my studies of the olfactory system, the mucociliary apparatus. And if you go to my movies on my site, I made a movie about how the mucociliary apparatus works. And it's constantly clearing your upper airways. It also functions elsewhere. I fell in love with mucus itself, which is a thixotropic or non-Newtonian gel that is really important for humans in many, many respects. And I slowly worked my way through all the systems in the upper airways, mainly in the nasal cavity, but not always. Spent many years studying nasal airflow, got into computational fluid dynamics. One of my postdocs was a mathematician background in differential geometry. Anyway, she came in and introduced me to computational fluid dynamics, worked in my lab for 4 or 5 years on and off, and then went off to UNC where she had a job using airflow simulation, using MRIs of the nasal airway, and there she could predict the effects of surgery to optimize airflow. So that kind of was an
Interesting.
interesting side effect. And then
Yeah.
I was also invited to speak several times at symposia on olfactory function. So this was a pretty rich area of study. But I tell you, the nose is really important and really complicated. But if you say you work on it, people always think it's funny. They laugh about it, and that's fine with me. I don't care. But it's actually a very serious protective mechanism for the
Yeah.
rest of your respiratory tract and for the rest of your body. It's got a very interesting history going way back to chemoreception in bacteria and stuff like that. Anyway, so I think there's a long enough digression, don't you think?
I think it's great. I think it's interesting. I think it's really important for people here. Anyone who has any sort of comorbidity needs to be paying attention, because the nose is the key to making sure you don't get any sort of additional bugs that can exacerbate the problem. I was reading this article about people in Japan, and there's a habit that many get into where every single time they get home, aside from washing their hands, they rinse out their nasal passages. And they said it helps to prevent sickness. And I know during COVID, I was using a nasal rinse every single time I would go out. So, and I didn't get COVID during COVID, the big outbreak, it wasn't until I let my guard down after everybody was back to work and my dad came home and voila,
Yeah,
I
you're
didn't
talking about
realize.
you're talking about the neti pot, but I hesitate to do that because it seems too invasive. But whenever now, because of COVID and especially the flu virus, it can be carried on your hands and on door handles. So if ever now, I routinely, and I haven't had a flu now for a few years, whenever I go into the local mall where I work, if ever I touch a door handle, I use the hand sterilizer I carried in my pocket. I sterilize that, and I'm very careful around my nose not to touch my nose because that is how it will get
Those
in
are
off your
eyes.
hands, up your nose, and then you
Yep.
have the flu. So yeah, and that's a very simple thing to carry around. But whenever I touch a door handle or use the bathroom where other people are touching surfaces, uh,
Mhm.
don't touch your nose until you sterilize your hands. It doesn't seem to harm my hands at all. So it's just that
Yep.
there are fomites everywhere.
Yep.
Mm.
I want to say hello to Andrea. Can we welcome Andrea? She's right in my backyard. She's up in the North Bay, and she was wanting to prevent having surgery. So she's getting started with her walking program. Andrea, you can go ahead and unmute, say a few words, say hello.
Hello, I appreciate being here. This is very interesting. I'm on the treadmill. It's
Yeah.
trying to think
Yeah.
about how my feet are moving.
We don't hear you squeaking over there or chirping over there, so that's good.
Yeah.
Your treadmill's in better shape. Tell us a little bit about your program, what you're trying to do, and if you have any questions for Kevin based on anything he said or anything that's just personal to you, all questions are welcome. I mean, as you saw, we got into noses as well this episode.
Yeah, well, and the teeth thing is really interesting because there's a lot of evidence of that, and I really think about when I've had dental issues and how that probably was around the same time of the P.A.D. So that's an interesting conversation. But yeah, I learned that I had P.A.D. Several months ago, but then I also got a shoulder injury and all sorts of stuff. So I've been focused on the food and doing some of the walking, but I find it really hard. So it's nice to be a part of a group and just kind of like, okay, it's hard, but here I am.
Do you find it's easier actually in being on with us and hearing, Kevin and his encouraging words and, offering some real tangible tips, not just walk, but some real things to focus on. It kind of makes the time pass a little bit and gets rid of any boredom. I can tell you that.
Yeah, the boredom issue, and also just the knowledge that, I read Kevin's book and also listened to the audio previously, and just the acknowledgement of how hard it is. I think the people around me or the support system, it's like, well, just get out there, just walk. They don't realize, okay, it's a lot more painful for me than it is for you. It's not. So it's kind of having that, but also the mindset portion is the part that I think is the most important part. I think about I've had two children. The first child I had when I was going through labor, it was like, wow, this is so ridiculously painful and everything else. But with the second one, it was like, okay, I know this is going to be really hard, and had more mental acuity to deal with it. So I'm kind of working on that aspect of it. Yes, it's hard, but you can get through hard things. Possible.
Yeah, Andrea, once you get enough walking under your belt, I mean, how old are you roughly?
65.
Oh, you're just a kid. Okay. Yeah, no, you've got many years ahead of you. Once you get going and get these collaterals growing, and then you learn how to move more efficiently with the blood you do have down to your lower limbs, down to usually your calves and your feet. It can be elsewhere. I started out in 2014. I first noticed it in marathons. I was usually used to coming in on a marathon I don't know, in 4.5 hours. And I was coming in at 7 hours when they're closing the course because of numb feet and calf pain. And then that was diagnosed as P.A.D. That's in 2014. And I could go to the track and go 200 yards, and I had to stop and let the blood back in my calf. And if I walked uphill, I would have calf pain and have to stop, and my friends would have to wait for me if I was walking with somebody. And so I worked on the methods for getting better flow to my feet. I mean, I have a background, I'm a pathologist by training, a veterinarian. I've studied body movement most of my life and taken a lot of great training courses from yoga instructors and Continuum and Pilates and all that stuff. And now I'm 83, so we're talking quite a few years later, and I can now walk my dogs for 5 miles and not have any claudication at all, except when I'm walking, I'm using shoulder hip counter rotation. I'm constantly pumping my feet, but I don't even think about it anymore. If I hit a hill, I just pump a little harder. Whereas, 10 years ago, I was worried I wouldn't even be able to walk my dogs. And
Right.
so grow those collaterals, learn how to move, get what help you can from physicians. Don't, if anybody says the word amputation, go find somebody else, especially Kim. And,
Already reached out.
yeah, and it's, you'd be surprised how well you can do by fighting back. I call it outwitting the disease myself, but
Yeah.
I like that.
Andrea, it's pretty encouraging, right, to hear what he has to say. I mean, the fact that he's 83 years old and he's had this for many, many years, and he's now walking 5 miles without any claudication, that's huge.
That is huge. And I find, again, on the mental end, and it's really funny because I can do fine on the treadmill, but on a mental side, when I'm outside, it's uneven surfaces. I have a fear factor I have to get through. And walking in nature is one of my favorite things on the planet. So part of it is that, just being able to trust my body again and getting through the claudication and just saying, it's okay. You can do this. Keep going.
Let's say, Andrea, there's one thing that's really important. It's very hard to induce claudication on a treadmill because they tend to be springy and remove the impact stress. And so walking outside, preferably on asphalt, not concrete, or walking trails, if you watch where you're going, you get enough impact stress to trigger those growth of collaterals. Whereas on a treadmill, it's pretty hard to induce claudication. You have to run or put a distinct incline or push it really hard. And then
Right.
So you could do a couple of miles on a treadmill. You think you're great. Then you go outside and you walk, and 100 yards later, you're claudicating. So what the hell? I've been through that. And so just remember, walking a distance on a treadmill is not the same as walking a distance on the road.
Exactly.
But yet-
and the safety element of it too, but the squishiness and that safety, and that you can pause it, and it's not uneven surfaces, all of it. I have been trying to do the interval walking, so I do on the treadmill, so that I'm doing more incline and then back to base, and so I do get claudication. I can feel it, but not, you're absolutely right, not the same way that I do when I'm out in the real world.
I'm curious from Mike and Douglas's standpoint, if they want to unmute and share on this, because they too, when we first started, were afraid to even walk out their front door because they were afraid if they went a few steps away, what if they couldn't get back? They're all alone. How are they going to get back if they end up with a really bad cramp? So I don't know if I know Mike unmuted.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to chime in a minute ago, and when Andrea was mentioning about liking nature walks, and it's great. Nature walks are very good for your mental health as well. I often have a bad day. As I say, every now and again, I'll come on here and I'll be like, oh, I've had a really bad day mentally, and I did yesterday. I woke up yesterday feeling really down. Went out for a walk. Went around this pond, this big lake area, and went right into the woods where I've never been before. Completely cleared my mind. It was, by the evening time, I was completely different. So just getting out in nature and going for a walk is very good for your mental health as well. Yeah, I struggled. I was diagnosed in February 2024. Was it? No, 25 last year. God, I was adding a year on then, Kim. So, and like Kim said, I didn't want to get off my couch. I had the fear factor of getting up and getting out. And then I bought myself a treadmill, like many of us do, and kind of never looked back. And I can walk as far as I did a 13-kilometer charity event in September. I did 13 kilometers with no pain whatsoever. So it's an art of just keeping going and just making sure you put in the work every single day. So,
And that's
great.
incredible.
That's inspiring.
Right? I mean, the fact that he did this 13K, doesn't matter how fast you walk or whatever, the fact that he was able to go out there and enjoy it and complete it was pretty awesome. We also have someone in the group, Marcia, who had several failed stents. She was one of the ones, if you're in our P.A.D. supportgroup.org, you should actually, if you're not, join and then tag her in a post, or tag me and then I can tag her, to get her to share her story. Her stents in her femoral arteries kept reblocking and reblocking and reblocking. And we kept working on walking. And I said, well, if you don't want to have a bypass, at the time, they didn't have that minimally invasive bypass that we have. The inventor of the minimally invasive bypass literally right around the corner from us. And you're going to get to see him, which I'm excited about very soon. But she was able to, she went into the surgeon and he was like, you know what, honestly, I just looked at your CT scan and you have so many collateral vessels. Nice job. I mean, you don't need to have a bypass. I'm happy to do it, but I don't think it's going to improve your quality of life. And then what's the contingency plan when it fails? So she's been walking, and she takes videos and of all of these beautiful nature walks that she now goes on, even with those blocked femoral arteries. So I hope that's encouraging for you as well.
Well, there is a warning. Marina had a lot of collaterals, did a lot of walking, and then she had a surgery. I understand it rightly. They cut through the collaterals and destroyed them. And so she went right back to square one. And that was, I would say, not only avoid amputation, avoid surgery if you possibly can. If you really need surgery, great, saves your life. I just had surgery, saved my life. But think about it before. You don't go rushing in. Some surgeons will not even try to save your feet. They'll just recommend surgery. The insurance companies will, as Kim knows and has explained to us, they will pay for amputation and they won't pay for, limb salvage. It's a crazy system, actually, and you are at the mercy of whichever vascular surgeon you happen to run into. So just remember that there's somebody in the world who right now is going in to see the worst doctor in the world. So you need to remember.
Yeah, we just had a patient that I said, hey, you know what, you might want to get a second opinion before you get bilateral surgical bypasses, FemPop bypasses. I know the doctors do not treat below the knee. And so I said, if you are going to get bilateral FemPop bypasses, one, make sure you do a supervised exercise therapy program or full-fledged structured program for 3 months beforehand, because they do tell you that goodbye collaterals, and unless that gets blocked, you're going to have trouble, building them. In the meantime, it just bypasses everything. So you really have to take that into consideration. Number one. Number two is many doctors don't treat below the knee, and you need to make sure the plumbing below supports the faucet being turned on. So many doctors will hope that once they turn on the faucet, that the body will do its thing right away and start rerouting blood flow around any blockages that are below the knee. But with especially diabetics and chronic kidney disease patients, which are more prevalent today than, let's say, 5-10 years ago, they're going to go down. And I've had actually 4 bypasses go down in just the last 2 days from patients. So, and every single one of them this time was because there were blockages below the knee that weren't addressed. So they turned on the faucet and there was no place for the blood to go. So it's really important to walk, walk, walk. It is the best medicine. And as Andrea and I were talking, it can suck, right, you guys? It can suck, right, Douglas? But you got to do it. And we can all suck in it together.
It's you get up every day and you find a purpose for that day. And we got to remember the walking and everything we've talked about here affects us mentally as much as it does physically, and they go together. So having that courage and that hope every day that today I'm at a pay level of 10, but I'm going to take one step. Tomorrow I'll take 2 steps. The next day I'll take 3 steps. Think about sitting in front of the TV. Can I do all these exercises sitting in front of the TV and instead of just letting my feet sit there? There's all these exercises Kevin has shown you that you can do to help improve your walking.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to if you let the fear win, it will win. I mean, you were saying that, and I was thinking 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I've had all these bypasses. I had open heart surgery. And in the last 5 years, I built me a house. I get up every day and I don't let that fear stop me. I get up every day and I take one step. And I love walking in the nature. I love walking out here where I live. I got 5 acres out here. And I live in the country, and it was difficult walking in the beginning because I didn't want to get down the road and go out and nobody find me. Or it'd take 8 hours for somebody to drive down the road. Oh, look, there's Doug on the side of the road. What's happened? So there was that fear, but now, and I've learned so much. Socks. I've changed my socks.
Wool socks.
My wool socks. I told Kim yesterday, I bought a new pair of shoes.
Yep.
And I bought them a week ago at Bath Pro Shop. And Kevin, I'll send you something later, but my feet have never felt as comfortable all day long as they feel now. And when I walked this morning, got up and walked down the road a mile. It was like, all right, let's go 2 miles. Let's go 3 miles. I don't know. I can't explain it, Kevin, but I got these shoes now and they have not come off my feet since I bought them. They have.
It means that you now have socks and shoes that allow blood to flow through your feet. And so if you don't have constriction at the ankle, that's good. If you don't have tube socks, which constantly push the foot in from the side, then you don't have that. So optimizing your shoes and socks is a critical component of this process. And I've already got it on my phone I think it was like a Bass Pro Redhead or something like that. I've got it on my phone. I do need to go ahead and buy those and try it because my smart wool socks do create a slight constriction at the ankle, which I don't want. And I only use them in my hiking shoes. I don't have socks in my walking, running shoes. But yeah, what you're saying is it's pretty important.
And I think that's
Awesome.
the whole finding out everything that we need to do to make it better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every little thing helps.
Yeah. And every little thing, speaking of which, I want to end on a fun note. I mentioned earlier the cocoa from Dr. Mary McRae McDermott from Northwestern. And she has a secondary study that is going on about cocoa. And it's pretty incredible that cocoa, she found in her initial study, people could walk 42.6 meters further in the 6-minute walking test with 3 cups of flavanol-rich cocoa drink. for a matter of 6 months. So I thought that was really interesting. So if you're in the Chicago area, I know, right, Carl? Oh my God, yum.
I have a
So-
really specific question that
Uh-oh.
Kevin will get. Oftentimes, what's important biologically with fluids and chemicals is quantity and concentration. So I for me need to know how much cocoa powder to make and fluid to make the drink up with. That's important. So if you can find that out and pass it along.
I will actually, she is going to be live with us. And I was going to ask Kevin, because this just happened last night, if Kevin, would you like to join us on August 3rd? It would be at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on August 3rd. We're going to be doing the interview. We're going to pre-record it for our September 19th full-fledged walking orientation and certificate program. So we're taping this ahead of time. I've collected some questions from people. Carl, it'd be fun if you were there, and Mike and Andrea and Douglas, and maybe Kevin wants to split up some of the questions with me and might have a few extras of your own. But we're going to be hearing her 50 years of research on supervised exercise therapy. And we're also going to include her initial study on cocoa and then what they're studying now, taking it to a whole new level. So could be interesting. I ended up buying the Black Forest cocoa powder, high in flavonoids. And I use also Terrasol organic cacao, and I mix them together. And I put them either in my smoothie, or number two, I put them in, I mix it with my emergency. It's a little clumpy, but I go ahead and just down it. So anyway, I hope you guys can join us. But in the meantime, that was chapter 8. Next week, Kevin, chapter 9. What is it again? What are we covering?
Hang on, I'll go look it up. Chapter 9, master the P.A.D. 100 exercise correctly. I mean, waggling your feet is one thing, but doing it right, so you have this pumping action the entire time, that is really important, or you don't get the benefit. So that's the next chapter, chapter 9. It's the second chapter in intermediate level P.A.D. training. And don't forget,
Fantastic.
this is training camp, not complaining camp.
No complaining here. Never any complaints with you, Kevin. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully you can join us next week. Again, info@padhelp.org. We can send you a reminder every single week to join us, whether you want to join us on our YouTube channel or right here in our live in studio audience. Either way, we have Joshua, who's right there on YouTube at all times, gathering your comments and questions so he can bring them to Kevin in real time. So you can always just stay there, remain anonymous, and we're still going to make sure we inspire you to take that extra step. And also be prepared. We have a brand new circulation challenge, the Great Circulation Challenge, launching in September. Join us and teams across the globe. We have doctors and clinicians and PAD patients and all kinds of people that are looking to explore the circulatory system all of the month of September, PAD Awareness Month. And we're going to be taking stops along the way, the heart, the brain, the arms, the legs, and all the organs along the way, to learn a little bit more about our circulatory system and how the body develops collateral vessels to reroute blood flow around any blockages. So make sure, email us at info@padhelp.org, and we'll get you a registration link as well. Don't forget to join our group, padsupportgroup.org. And while you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to our channel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kim and Josh. Appreciate it. And everyone else.
Josh.
Thank you.